Creative and common companion plants, ones you might have heard of and ones you might not. We're going to talk all about fruit trees, right? Planting companion plants under fruit trees. We've got a few here, and I've got my vegetables beds. We're going to look at those as well. So jump on this live. If you're watching the recording, we're going to be getting all kinds of questions. So we're talking all about companion plantings. Now, if you don't know what companion planting is, let's start there. So companion planting is planting two plants together for the mutual benefit of each. And I really only got into companion planting about 5 or 6 years ago. And for me, it was all about dealing with pests. So companion planting is all about not just dealing with pests, but also nutrients and other environmental factors where two plants are greater than the sum of their parts. And so behind me, I've actually got some apple trees. We've got some companion plants we're going to look at today, a couple different types. So if you've got questions on companion planting, put them in the chat below. I'm going to answer them, all your questions today. All right, so companion planting is something that you want to plan out ahead of time. And some of these principles fall under what's called permaculture, which is a whole side of growing where you're creating an ecosystem of plants that all work well together. And so what I've started doing is, instead of having just my apple trees behind me, I've also started growing other plants underneath in and around their canopy and drip lines. So let's start with the orchard. Let's take a look what we got here. So companion planting for garlic. Great question. Going to be looking at that here once we get to the vegetable garden, so stand by. All right, so we've got a couple different companion plants here going on. Now, I just did a video in the fall about these, but this is called comfrey. And comfrey is actually a plant that's going to come back every year. It's a perennial, and it gets quite sizable. And you can see here that these are about this tall. And what comfrey does, this is really neat. Comfrey actually pulls nutrients, and here you can see the plant right here. It pulls nutrients from deep in the soil. It brings them up into their leaves, and as their leaves die, that provides nitrogen back to the plants around it. And so you definitely want to look at comfrey. It's sort of the Swiss Army knife of companion planting. It also has these beautiful flowers. Now, if you do get comfrey, I would recommend getting the, I think it's Russian Bocking 14. You don't want ones that... Oh, lovely. Let's try this again. You don't want companion plants that are going to seed and spread and be so profuse that you can't manage them. So these are just spread through rooting, so rooted cuttings. So that's something you want to keep in mind. Also, if you do need to remove them later, they can be difficult, so you want to dig out the roots if you do have to remove them. But I'm not planning on it. This is a forever spot for these comfrey. And they also provide a lot of shade. So you can see like how big these leaves are on these comfrey plants, right? I mean, these are pretty sizable leaves here. This is like a small bush. And so you can do what's called chop and drop, which is where you drop the comfrey leaves throughout the year a couple different times, and that creates like a natural mulch that's going to keep the soil cooler. It's also going to like add nutrients back in the soil. That nitrogen from those leaves are going to come back down. So super helpful companion plant. All right, I also got some strawberries growing, and this is more, you can't really see them too well, but they're between these two plants here. You can see strawberries forming on one of them. So we've got some strawberries here. It's pretty sweet. And those are good for ground cover, right? Strawberries, they spread. You actually have to be careful, because that's why they call it a strawberry patch, is because they're going to spread out as they grow and put new plants out from what's called runners. But they do make a great ground cover. I'm not worried about them getting into my yard. I'm just going to mow them in the yard and let them sort of go around the fruit trees. You do want to plant those at the drip line, because they do need a little bit more sun. So I planted them like right outside my fruit trees. All right, so let's move down to another type of companion plant here. So walk with me, and that is going to be chives. Now, watch out for the limb. chives are really great companion plants to put right at the base of the tree. And the reason for this is these chives will keep, they'll deter rabbits. They'll also deter certain types of pests because the smell is so strong, and they're quite good. These are garlic chives, and I also have, I believe, some regular chives as well, but they're pretty pungent. Whew. And I really like them. I plant them around the base of many of my trees here, and again, that just deters rabbits. It deters certain types of pests. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a secret. I'm trying out a new companion plant. So stand by, and I'm going to give you that information. But before I do, just want to make one quick announcement, and that is, if you haven't downloaded my new ebook, it's in my bio. It's free. It's called Portable Orchards, and it's all about the keys to successfully growing fruit in containers. So check it out. It's in my bio. Go download it now. All right, so this is my new experimental companion plant, and this is all going to be, and this is just one of 7 or 8, all of my vining melons and vining squash. So winter squash, butternut, spaghetti squash, melons like watermelon, cantaloupe, all of those make for really good companion plants along fruit trees. And the reason is because they're going to spread these leaves out, and those leaves are going to fill up all of this mulched area, and it's going to actually cool and shade the soil. And then as I water them, it's going to water the trees. And so you want to do these between your fruit trees. You don't want them like directly under the canopy because they do need full sun, but I've got a lot of space here, and they're sort of going to wander all around. So it keeps them out of my yard. It gives them a place to grow. They're going to, and I'm excited because I think it's going to cover like all the mulched area. It's going to look beautiful, like a green living mulch that cools because of the shade, and it also lets me use the space, right? So I can grow something under the trees that's just as useful. Now, if the trees are smaller, they could also vine up the trees, but you got to be careful because you don't want that weight pulling on the branches and going to snap one. So if it's smaller, that would actually work pretty well. So any questions on companion plants for orchards? We're talking about companion planting for orchards. We're going to be jumping into companion planting for vegetables here in a moment, so stay tuned. But if you've got any questions, thanks for joining this live session. We're talking all about companion plantings. I do have one that I'm going to be putting in next. I want to show you. And this particular one is a really unique type of onion. And it is called the Egyptian walking onion. And what's really unique about these is it's got these little bulbs that form out of the tips. So you've got the bulbs in the base, right? You've got these thick green stems, which you can use for green onions in dishes. And on the end, it's got more bulbs forming out of the end. And what happens is, the reason it's called Egyptian walking onion is because it falls over, and these little guys will put roots in the ground and form new onions. So they sort of walk. They'll spread, they'll grow. I've got 2 or 3 of these I've got to put in the ground, but they're also really useful at deterring pests, and they're scrumptious. They look sort of fun, and you can eat both the bulbs at the end and the bulbs at the bottom, or the green shoots coming out. So super useful. So that's what I've got. Another thing you can do with orchard companion planting is you can save seeds. So I brought these, I saved these last year from my chives. This is all from a few chive plants. You can see how many chive seeds I've got in this bag, probably thousands of seeds. So super easy to save the seeds, and then you can use these as you plant new trees to get more bunches growing. So super useful. Thanks again for joining my live. We're going to transition from fruit trees and their companion plants over to vegetables. As we walk, make sure that you check out my new ebook, which is all about container fruit trees. I want everybody here to be proficient in that. I'm very passionate about growing fruit, if you can't tell. It's one of my personal passions. All right, so behind me, okay, here we got a question. Where is a good place to plant the walking onions? I would plant them in the drip line. So I'll show you here. So you could either do it like between your trees, and I've got this one propped here like where I've got my melons, or you could do it at the front in the drip line. You could put them in the back. They won't do as well, but if you put them towards the front, like in front of the tree, they'll get a little bit of sun. They'll benefit from that drip line, so you're not completely covering them. So maybe 6 feet out would probably be good. 4, depending if it's a smaller tree. Great question. All right, so we are here in the garden area, which has become quite not when you say overgrown, because I like it this big, but you can see behind me, it's just massive amount of growth. And this year I'm actually trying something a little bit different, where I'm like overplanting in every bed and sort of letting that provide a little bit more of a natural mulch. So I've got like tomatoes in this bed, I've got squash, I've got cucumbers going up this trellis here. And it's just, you would think like, wow, that's way too many. Colleen, thanks for downloading the ebook. Awesome. Appreciate it. So back to this. So this is actually really, really dense. And you can see, I mean, I've got all kinds of stuff. I've got cucumbers growing in here, and it provides this nice natural shade by sort of over planting everything. And I'm not using any mulch this year in my beds. I'm just testing it out. I usually put mulch every year, and I'm just want to give it a go. So that's an added tip. That's not companion planting, but that is a little bit about growing veggie beds. So here's my first bed I want to show you. And right now I've got, this is a really great plant that I've grown, and I've let this go to flower, right? And you might know this. This is like a something that you would use in a Mexican dish. It's called cilantro. And cilantro is really great as a companion plant. And I let this go to flower because that's going to bring pollinators into my bed. So that's one benefit. You don't always want to pull everything when it's gone to flower, because you could be attracting pollinators. Okay, so that's the first one. We got a lot to go. All right, next companion plant, I've got some more onions. So I've actually planted onions from starts this year. I got from Grow Organic, and they've popped out great. These are great. I planted them all through the bed. So if you actually look, you can see there's onions up and down this bed right now. So I've got onions here. And I planted them in between every pepper. And I've got them here. I've got them down by my ground cherries. And we've got a lot of good stuff growing right now. These are some sweet pickle peppers, one of my favorites. And they're not hot. I don't do too well with spicy stuff. So they're pretty good. Sweet pickle peppers. All right, so that's one. Onions. And the benefits of onions are going to be, that they deter pests through their smell, right? Aphids. There's lots of little bugs that get deterred. Now, another one, which you're going to see is more of the common one, is basil. And this basil is actually starting to flower. And you can see the flowers here. Right, that's the flowers that are forming, and then eventually those will turn to seed, and then you can save those seeds. And I actually grew this basil from seeds that I saved from previous years. So stop buying basil seed, just save your own, right, every year. Very easy. What you can do with basil, first of all, you want to plant basil around tomatoes, because basil and tomatoes make a great pair. Okay, they taste good together. They grow well together, so always plant them. And you can see I've got my tomato plant here. And you can see these leaves are getting huge. Obviously, with basil, it's going to grow really large. I have 3 different types. I've got regular, I've got Thai, and I've got Spice Globe. Spice Globe is a really neat variety. It actually, let me see if I can show you here. I think I've got one. It sort of creates this little bushy plant naturally. So this is a Spice Globe, and it's got like a rounded bush feel to it, whereas the other ones really get out of hand. So I really like this one. I might soon do more and more of this one. And the leaves are a little bit smaller on it as well. It's got a little bit more spice. So that's Spice Globe basil. Anyway, great companion plants. All right, let's keep going here. I've got some other ones that are not quite there yet. Let's see if I can angle this. And this is you'll notice this leaf here, and I'll pull this out. This is, I think I'm going to make sure I pronounce it right, Nasturtium. And this actually has edible flowers, and it's going to grow and spread, and that is a very useful companion plant. So that's another great companion plant. Wow, we have so many to cover here today. This is another one that I want to highlight. This is, and I pronounced it incorrectly before. It's actually pronounced calendula, and it's a great way to bring pollinators. It's a great flowering plant, very useful companion plant in your beds. It can get quite big. You can see this is all one plant here. So just keep that in mind. You can cut this back. You don't have to leave it. And I actually took these flowers from last year and let them go to seed. They get these little hardened bits around the flower, and then you can save those and plant them next year from seeds you saved. So very easy. I also put marigolds in every bed that I plant. I don't know if you can see it back here, but I've got some lemon yellow marigolds. That's another very common and popular companion plant. The smell is really what deters bugs. So make sure that smells good. Always plant marigolds in your beds. All right, so we covered a lot today. We covered onions, we've covered basil, we've covered calendula, not calendula. We've covered, let's see, what else? Marigolds, so many good companion plants, but it is just, and cilantro. So those are some vegetable companion plants. I'm going, one more, I almost forgot, and that is borage. Borage is a really great companion plant, and I don't really have any flowering quite yet, but it creates this like little soft leaf. They're really beautiful. And when they flower, they've got these nice little dainty flowers. They're actually edible. You can put them on salads, and they're great to bring in pollinators. So borage is another great companion plant. All right, Nasturtium. Yes, Teresa, thank you. Good point. I've got some of those growing. I don't know how big they are yet, but I'm stuffing these beds full this year because it's going to be a great growing season, and everything is just busting out. So what questions do you have on companion plants? Obviously, I don't have a lot of pest problems because I've got diversity. Monoculture is actually what causes a lot of problems. When you put just one thing in a bed, you're going to have pests. Pests like to eat it, right? So you want to make sure that you have a diverse growing environment, because that's really going to benefit the growing situation. It's going to benefit everything. All right, question. Can all of these companion plants be planted in direct sun? Yes, all of these that you have here in this garden are all in direct sun. I've got a little bit of afternoon shade from these pine trees just because I'm in zone 8A. It gets pretty hot in the afternoon, but that's really only towards the end of the day. So all of these are direct full sun companion plants. Great question. Speaking of direct sun, I'm in direct sun now, and it's getting hot. So what last questions do you all have for me today? Remember, download my ebook. It's free, Portable Orchards, all about container fruit trees. I've also got a webinar coming up I'm super excited about. It's going to be about the ABCs of fruit trees. Stay tuned. I'll send out more information about that. My goal here is just to share what I've learned over the years. So I'm super excited. And any last questions on companion plants? Because I got to get back to work and cool down now that the sun's out. It's starting to get hot. All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Till next time.